the cacao plantation. Just watch out for the snake that is, wandering. No, not just kidding. Just kidding.
We saw one earlier.
Were you guys, walking around?
Yes.
Okay, good. Muy bien. I like also to explain to you so what we're doing here. So this is a biological reserve which is called Tirembina. It's a non-profit organization that is working with the local communities. So we are trying to bring kids to enjoy environmental education, and we prepared all kinds of projects for them. So this is actually part of their classes. So they come over here as a like a field experience, and the idea is to make them feel like real researchers. So they come, they actually collect plants, some caterpillars and whatever, and then they have to measure the abundance and diversity of them.
They're all
here.
studying to be teachers.
Oh, really?
So that's really
Okay,
relevant.
that is great because actually these local communities, are from elementary schools and from different grades, and they come to La Tirembina. Including me. I was actually one of the kids that first experienced the forest over here in La Tirembina, and I enjoyed it very much. And I wanted to become one of them. One of the guides that were leading groups and stuff. See, muy bien. Okay. Because this place is non-profit, so it means that we're not having any support from the government. We developed the chocolate tour as a good way to take advantage of a cacao plantation that is located at the other side of the forest, which was actually one of the first cacao plantations in these regions. That cacao plantation, it was an experimental cacao plantation. So the owner, he wanted to experience the tree and also how the tree could produce fruits and flowers, and then he wrote down a book which is called the Chocolate Natural History. Muy bien. And over here we have the tree. This is the cocoa tree where chocolate comes from. Have you guys ever seen it before? No? Muy bien. The tree actually grows in the tropics, and it's really interesting because this is really a strong tree. It doesn't need a direct light in order to develop. It just needs just a few spotlights to come in order to carry out the photosynthesis and also produce their own food. Muy bien. These are the fruits. These ones over here, the ones that are hanging right above my head. So they come from the pollination of these flowers. You can see that the flowers usually grow along the trunk and along the main branches. This is a very important characteristic of cacao and also a few plants. When the fruits are quite big and also heavy, they prefer to spend so much energy by growing the flowers over here rather than the tip of the branches, because if they grow from the tip of the branches and then the pollination season it was really good and then they have lots of food, they might make the branches to collapse, and then in the next season for the plant to spend its energy to produce lots of flowers, they'll be producing more branches, and then the production of that is not going to be very good. Muy bien. In the wild, cacao is growing in Costa Rica because actually it's a native plant from South and Central America. It can grow as big, let's say, it can grow as big as that tree over there. So the skinny one. So it can get that high. So it can get up to, let's say, 60 feet up, something like that. So for some farmers, that is not really good for economy, because instead of for example growing smaller trees, so they have to climb up the tree in order to harvest the fruits. We can just not pull them off the tree, because that might damage a place over here on the branch or on the trunk where future flowers will grow. So this one, the harvesting process, it needs to be really for example, carefully. We have to use machetes or scissors, and we have to cut off the fruit from the tree. We just not, we don't have to pull them off. So actually when the fruits, they're full grown, beautiful and ripe, they usually turn yellow or red. And when they're that big, they never fall. Like apples, when they are ripe, you just need to check the branch and they will fall. For a cacao, they never fall. So for that reason, Aboriginals from Central America consider the tree very sacred. and they actually called it the fruit of the gods. See, that is actually what
agree.
the scientific name of cacao means. So the scientific name is Theobroma, like
Theo.
theology, right?
God.
So Theo means God, and Broma means food or beverage, and it was because of that. So the fruits, they were too sacred, and they were actually like supposed to be planted by their own gods into the land, that they didn't deserve to be on the ground. So that's why they usually get ripe up in the trees, and they get rotten still up in the trees. So from these, the Olmecs, so that were the civilization from Central America, discovered the process how to turn the beans that were too sacred as well, and actually it was part of their currency, into a drink that later was called cacao. Cacao means bitter drink, and also is the root word to the fruit, to the name of the fruit, which is cacao. Cacao. So most people in English call it cocoa or cocoa, so which is actually right as well, but its real name is cacao. And from this is what we are, what we are going to use to prepare our own chocolate. So we have already followed the process of the Aboriginals to turn the fruits into the chocolate. By the way, there is a very interesting characteristic about the tree, especially the flowers. So the flowers are being produced all year around. There is no season to produce them. So a single tree like this can produce up to 6,000 flowers in a year, in 1 year. That's the average. But from 6,000 flowers, only 1% of them are going to reach the pollination. And the reason why is because if you guys take a look to the flowers, so they're really tiny, they're very small. Muy bien. Hummingbirds that are main pollinators to some of the flowers around the tropics, they just follow bigger flowers, or flowers that are already adapted to their, to the size and also shapes of their beaks. In the case of the cacao flower, they have no shape of the, they don't have the shape of a hummingbird beaks or whatever, so that is not pollinated by hummingbirds. They are only pollinated by insects, especially ants, and in the forest floor, there is a fruit fly that usually lives in there and comes up to the flowers in order to pollinate them, looking for the nectar. The nectar, at some point, it becomes into fructose, which is actually very, very good for ants. So when they're taking the pollen from this flower, they have to travel on the ground looking for another tree in order to transport the pollen from here to there, so making possible the cross-pollination. After pollination, it takes about 6 months to go from this flower to a full-grown fruit. So just to have an idea, how hard is to grow cacao in Costa Rica or in the tropics? It takes about 6 months just to have a full-grown fruit.
How old is that one?
This one is probably like 2 months old. Yeah, 2 months old. So this season it was very good for us because we have actually like some of the fruits growing. Actually, the average of fruits produced per tree is going to be about 100. But from 100 fruits, in some farms in Costa Rica, they only get to harvest from 20 to 30 fruits every year per tree. And the reason why they only get to harvest those ones is because cacao is being threatened by a disease which is really bad for it. It is called Monilia, which is a fungus. A fungus kills the fruit no matter on what stage the fruit is, and it's going to, it's going to make it rotten really easy and really fast. So this is actually a disease that is probably making most people, most cocoa producers afraid, because some of them, their main income is producing cacao, and if they get, for example, the disease, or if they cannot control the disease, probably they might lose the entire plantation. Not because of the tree, because of the fruits. Because if one fruit is infected, it might infect the other ones. Muy bien. There is no cure in order to stop it, but there is actually treatments, and the treatments to control, for example, that disease is really expensive. It needs to be actually by hand. If the fruit is infected by Monilla, we just have to cut the fruit off, dig a hole in the ground, put the fruit in there, then we cover that with dirt, so allowing bacteria to take over the fungus. So they will kill it. But if we have like probably 5 acres of cacao planted over there, it's going to be really expensive to hire more people to start controlling the disease, because this process is needs to be by hand. So that's why some people, they're trying to grow cacao like this in a smaller plantation in order to produce just the necessary cacao to make some chocolate. Muy bien. Now we're gonna keep going through that trail. Before we go there, I'm going to warn you that there might be some branches that are very low. Watch out your heads.